All right. Hey, everybody, welcome to the Nomads Nation podcast. And today we're doing a bit of an emergency pod where we're going to talk about how the war and the entire conflict in the Middle East is affecting the gear we love. And there's a reason that I wanted to do this podcast because, obviously, in this community, we're very obsessed with bags and travel gear, and we're probably going to see those prices go up. So I want to kind of understand why. But also, B, a lot of people who follow Nomads Nation are in the bag business. They're in the bag world, whether they're brand owners, they're marketing executives, whatever it might be. And for me, I run Firo, which is a bag brand, and I need help navigating what the living hell is actually going on. So I wanted to hopefully have this conversation and create a bit of a resource where other bag brand founders and owners and anybody who's just interested in what's happening in the world of bags can kind of know what's going on. So to do that, I brought in an absolute expert into this conversation. We're talking to Lara from Move Supply Chain. Lara, how you doing today?
I'm good, so good. Thank you for having me here, Aaron.
You're welcome. And full transparency, we're both kind of smirking right now because we just talked for 15 minutes and I realized I didn't hit the freaking record button. I'm so sorry. Lara, we're meeting in Vietnam next week. I owe you a banh mi, okay?
Yeah,
I'll make
sure.
it up to you, I swear.
This is recorded, so yeah, I definitely have a free
Oh,
dinner.
it's happening. You and your whole team. Banh mi is on the house. So for anybody who doesn't know, Lara, you're the founder of MSC. It's Move Supply
Yeah.
Chain, and we actually work together. So I, as a new bag brand owner, I have no idea what the heck I'm doing when it comes to shipping and logistics and supply chain management. And you guys have such a great reputation. I hit you up and we worked together a little bit. We did an audit, and now you guys are helping Firo more to really kind of expand and cut our costs and be more efficient. So it just made sense to bring you on. Is there anything that I missed about Move Supply Chain? Tell me just the elevator pitch of what you guys do.
Yeah, so we are experts in supply chain from new product development, sourcing, inventory, demand forecasting, and logistics and warehousing. We are fractional support. So whatever the brand requires, whatever an e-commerce brand requires in terms of supply chain help, we that's what we do. We deploy talents to those brands, and so it's basically we came from like multinational companies, Aaron, and we started supporting DTC and e-commerce. And so we understand how difficult for e-commerce brands to hire five full times of different supply chain talent, So that's why the fractional support makes super sense for DTC brands because it is like few hours per category and supporting the whole supply chain without having to hire five full-time talents. So that's what we do.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself. So it just seemed like this topic, I want to chat about it because there's so much to unpack here. And it hits home for me right now because, as I was telling you on the previous version where I didn't hit the record button, but we just paid for our new freight. So for Firo, we just finished a new production order, and we did one of those 6 months ago, and it cost us X amount of money to get from Vietnam to California, Vietnam where we're manufactured, to California where our warehouse is, and now we just paid it again, which is the exact same amount of bags, but at 60% higher of a cost. So this is already hitting. What are you seeing just sort of at your perspective? How is this unfolding and how bad is it currently? Just, you have such a mass view of what's happening. Just talk to me about what's happening.
Yeah. So it's a global supply chain disruption. Majority of what we're considering here is the oil because it is being used for everything like manufacturing any product, at the same time shipment, and power as well, powering our warehouses and last mile delivery. So everything is actually centered around the problem right now, which is oil. And so the first thing that we're going to experience, and what you've experienced, Aaron, is the increase in shipments. And eventually, it's the increase in the unit cost of the brands of the unit cost of the products because right now probably your vendors have reserves of their raw materials so they're not experiencing it, but the moment they replenish their raw materials, and the delay is not just and there's an impact of delay and price increase, and that's the time that we're going to feel more of like delays on production, not just price increase, but definitely lead time delays as well.
It's how like layered this whole thing is, right? Because with this particular part of the world that's facing this, it's 20% of the world's oil, and you're like, oh well, gas prices might go up, but it's that domino effect of how so short term immediately, like you were saying earlier when we were talking, that gas prices have gone up 3x in the Philippines,
Yeah.
right? Some countries are more blessed than others, let's say more prepared, and they have gas reserves. But for other countries, not so. And for my freight company, apparently not so either, because we had such a big hike. But so there's that short-term pain of the gas just increasing, but then there's everything else that dominoes, where you have then more expensive freight, and then we're doing longer freight times because we got potentially the Red Sea that could be expecting, at the very best, some delays. At the very
Yeah.
worst, people might be going around the Cape of Horn down through Africa the entire time, which is just adding 2 weeks to the overall shipment
Yeah.
time. And this is just building and building. And what's really interesting too is, I'm curious, Lara, how important would you say oil is to the backpack world?
Super important, like just like with apparel, shoes, bags, these are like very dependent on oil. Not just the manufacturing part, but the power, the raw materials, everything. The more hardware that you use, the more affected it's gonna be. So so for at least for apparel, if it's just one cotton fabric, for example. But for you, for bags, you have zippers, you have the special kind of material if it's waterproof or like other cat proof. And so the more complicated the design is, the more technical it is, the harder it's gonna be.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at nylon,
Yeah,
polyester,
yeah,
metal, plastic buckles. I mean, the
yeah,
list goes on and on. And then you just said the other part that I didn't even think about is actually powering the factories, right? I
yeah,
mean, it's not just like we need gas to get, it's everything.
yeah.
It's the whole kit and caboodle. Let me ask you, like, I'm
And
curious.
solar is very focused in China. You cannot deliver solar in the US anymore. As far as I know, it's banned.
Mhm.
Um, so the power, the China is the biggest manufacturer of solar right now, and their production has been shifting from electricity to solar powered manufacturing plants. So
Mhm.
um, at least that one is being addressed for those manufacturers that are solar powered. But for other countries, for example, that doesn't have that, it's gonna affect them more.
How, well, I'd say in the world of bags, the majority are being made in China. With,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say the majority. I'd say China and Vietnam have the lion's share
Yeah,
between them.
yeah,
And then I've seen basically Philippines, India, Mexico, and then USA
Bangladesh.
trailing at the end are sort of the countries that we see the most. There are some African countries that are in the mix. I think it just depends on what part of the bag world. But
Mm.
typically, that's the hierarchy that I've seen, with China and Vietnam being at the top. Do you know about Vietnam? Are they doing any renewable energy right now, or is that mostly gas powered?
Yes, they are. They have started 2 years ago, not as huge as China, but China and Vietnam has a very good relationship in terms of transferring or trade system. So,
Hmm.
and a lot of Vietnam factories are also co-owned by a Chinese factory. So it's not very difficult for Vietnam. And I think the next to China is Vietnam already
In terms of what?
in terms of having being able to do solar power or protect their power as well.
Got it. Got it. Do you think that this is going to change maybe the backpack manufacturing landscape a little bit? I mean, obviously, we don't know how long this will last, right? Maybe it could be over tomorrow. But in the situation that it doesn't, I mean, are you seeing brand owners, especially when you stack this with tariffs?
Yeah.
There's a lot of incentive to potentially consider moving manufacturing outside of Asia, maybe into South America, maybe into
Mhm.
America itself. What are you seeing smart brand owners doing that you would recommend other brand owners at least look into, or is China and Vietnam still the way to go?
Yeah. So I think there's no rush in transferring because it's not a very smart move if you're not gonna think of it and develop a new product properly, not the shortcut development of new products for other manufacturers. But what I think the best next step, that if you have to check if you have a diverse source of raw materials, or if your client or if your vendor has a diverse source of raw materials. Because if you don't have visibility on your vendor's vendor and your vendor's vendor, then everything is going to be affected. So that's the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. So even if you know so much about your vendor number 1, do you know anything about their vendors? So they get zippers from specialty fabrics from here, from there, and so many raw materials. And having an understanding what is their supply chain is very, very important too. The more complicated your product is, the more it's going to be affected, because the more materials that you have, it means more supply chain that you have to manage. So it's basically starting now to address and to think, where is the other source of your product? As I've mentioned earlier, when tariff hit last year, we did like 20 of sourcing outside China to check if we can replace. 70% of that, it ended up that the landed cost from China is even cheaper than, like, for example, nearby countries. And 30% is the only that has sense of trying to do alternative ordering from other countries. So it's like having the understanding first, can I produce it somewhere else? Because maybe the answer is no, it's only in Vietnam and China. But maybe the answer is yes, that you can accept a higher unit cost, but with a better alternative options.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I remember when the tariffs, not the original China ones, but the new ones from last year, from Liberation Day, when we were liberated, I thought that a lot of brands initially would move manufacturing to America, but it didn't really seem to spark that, right? Because it sounds good on paper when you just look at one dimension or one part of the equation. You're like, oh, cool. If I manufacture in America, hypothetically, if you sell in the States, that could make sense. But then you realize, okay, that's cool. But wait, all my materials are coming from China, so and I have to import those in. So now I'm paying extra import costs just to get those materials in. I have to pay American labor wages, which are 5, 10x what they might be in a more developing country. And then, I have to hope my customers are okay to bite the bullet of charging $300 to $500 USD for this bag. So it's interesting as to where, even with all the tariffs and all of the complexities that adds, in your guys' research, for 70% of brands, just sticking with China and Vietnam made the most sense.
Yeah. And this is a fascinating result from us as well. Last year, since April, more of our clients transitioned from US to China, not the other way around. Yeah, so we have been transitioning three clients last year and 4 clients this year from US to Asia.
What industries were they, if you don't mind my asking?
Apparel and accessories.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so and the reason behind is that their raw materials, the fabrics, are coming from China. And it's so hard for the manufacturers in the US to keep the same cost of their raw materials, because now it is still shipping from China to US before they manufacture it there. So it's also, they're very affected. And if you think that, I'm gonna get here within the US or nearby, it's the same thing if the raw materials is coming from Asia. And you can't control it. That's the other part. When you have a vendor and you don't know where the raw materials are coming from, you cannot control them. If they have a cash flow problem too, and they cannot order in advance, then you have to wait for the raw materials to arrive. So it's cost and lead time at the same time. The two of the most affecting our DTC brands right now is lead time and cost.
So, with that knowledge, right, these are what's affecting, for any bag brand owners or anybody who's in the industry or anybody who's in e-commerce, what are some really like what should we be doing right now? Like at the
Mhm.
most basic level, you said the vendors. But what are just a couple checklists of a few things that you think are just so important, just in case this thing doesn't get resolved and it continues for a long period of time?
Number one for me is new product development or alternative raw materials search. So because for bags, I know that it's very, very important for you of the quality of the bag, the how it is formed, and there are so many technical bags that requires a specialized materials and a specialized way of production.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I think a single backpack for Firo, I think it's like 270 pieces, I think. Like,
yes,
and these are high quality pieces sourced from all over the world. So that's a complex supply chain, I assume. Like, obviously,
yeah,
maybe not as complex as like making an airplane, right? But
yeah.
for being an accessory, it's more complex than apparel, let's say.
Definitely, because you're handling so much more supply chains than just one raw material. And
Hmm.
so let's start with not simplifying it or not replacing a good quality raw materials, but understanding and being creative. How can we get an alternative source of raw materials? What is what is a good source in Vietnam that you can use in replacement of a new raw material that is coming from other countries?
So is that what you're recommending then? It's like so bag brands should be looking at keeping things within a single country or a single region. What's the best case scenario
Yeah.
there?
Simplifying where it's coming from. Simplifying where it's coming from. At the same time, you know the design of your brand, and if it's very important for you, it's the high time to understand what is the second best design that is more simple. And those are just like plan B, just in case it takes longer and longer lead time for your current bag manufacturer to get the raw materials and produce their products. So instead of not having the design in your store, then maybe there's a second best design that you can do, or just replacing one raw material with another raw material that is easier to get, for example. So NPD is first, and then next is capitalizing on the relationship with your vendors. You know, how much raw materials reserve is reserved for you versus the other clients that they have. How
Now, I
early
just want to understand, Lara. So is that like my factory, like, or is that deeper into the supply chain I should be looking at?
your factory. So talk to your factory right now and ask how much raw materials reserve do you have. And you can ask that definitely.
Hmm.
Because if five clients are using the same fabric like yours, like your brand, so you are like whoever gets to PO first, that gets the fabric, right? Or that gets the raw materials. But if you have a good relationship with them, even if you don't have PO yet, you can send a blank PO of the year. And this is what I'm expecting. You're not going to pay deposit for that yet, but sharing the forecast. This is what I see that we are going to sell for the year. Are your raw materials enough? If not, can you order? Maybe they have the capacity, and based on my experience, they do have the money to buy raw materials in advance. And
Oh,
the
so you're saying as the brand, don't front that. You're saying ask the factory to stock up sort of for you, so the factory is then fronting that?
Yes,
And
yes,
factories are cool with that? Some will
yes.
do that?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Especially for common raw materials. If it's like a very special type of zipper that only one brand is using, maybe not. But if it's common, at least for three more brands, then it's very easy to do. And also the space in China is huge. Like warehousing is not a problem.
Hmm.
So if they have the capacity to order more raw materials, then they will definitely do it. Just so remember, Aaron, they want to keep the business too. This is
Of
not
course.
just you asking for their favor. If for some reasons that the brands, their clients stop doing the business, they're gonna get hit big as well. So it's a
It's in their
right
favor.
now the partnership, the creativity of working together is very high, and I see a lot of Asian brands really supporting this situation right now. So it's a matter of, did you ask? Did you even try to have that conversation with your vendor? Did you
It
even?
sounds
Yeah,
it sounds scary. Like I don't
I
want to sound like I
know.
want to sound like a bitch right now, but like I'm like, oh no, I don't want to ask that. Like, do you think that factories are receptive to conversations like this?
Yes, and then that's the DTC mindset. You don't ask. When we were working for other companies, it's not it's not allowed not to ask. So these companies, they're also handling a little bit bigger companies, a little bit smaller companies, and they know how to work with different kinds of brands. So
Mm,
it's majority of what I record is teaching owners, brand owners, to say this. You can
mhm,
ask this. This is non-negotiable discussion with your vendor. And
mm.
because and the reaction is similar with you, Aaron. It's like, can I really ask that?
Yeah.
Yes, you can ask. It's like, can you order the raw materials for my six worth of products? If you
Mm.
have a very good relationship with your vendors, they can definitely do that because they have the money to do it and they have the space.
And it makes sense. I understand what you're saying too. If it's a something, if it's a fabric that's more in demand, right? Like I know, for instance, like our factory or factories in Vietnam just have stockpiles of Hypalon, and
Mm-mm.
because they know that every brand uses Hypalon,
Yeah.
so like they don't even order it. They just store it because they know that they're going to need it on every backpack basically that they make. So. But for something very specialized, like you said, might be less logical. But then again, depends on the relationship and depends on a lot of that. But it's interesting too because that means basically in supply chain sort of crunch down moments where the supply chain is compromised, those more interesting type fabrics and one-off premium those are the ones that probably go off the supply chain first.
Yes. Yes, that's right. Yes.
Very interesting. I
Uh,
didn't
Or,
want to interrupt.
or it's gonna be super expensive. If there's
Mm.
a market for that, then bag lovers and buyers are gonna wait a long time and pay a high price.
I was asking you about recommendations for bag owners and like just brands in general. So we had two. Was there anything else that you want to throw out there for like just like you think it's going to provide a ton of
Yeah.
value?
Yeah. So it's this is the harder one, wherein your marketing, finance, and supply chain should be talking inside one room, where what is the inventory that we can keep, because over ordering could be something that a lot of brand owners are thinking right now, like, I will order more than the usual because I'm afraid what could
It
happen.
makes sense, right? Like the prices are going to go up in 3 months, so I should stock up now. It's
Yeah.
kind of like that's what my alarm bells are ringing. It's like buy
Yes.
more now, but you're saying don't do that.
No, I'm saying get the sign off from your marketing and finance, because that's the most logical thing to do. If you have the money, that should be signed off by your finance. If you have a support from your marketing, is this the product that you really need to overbuy? Like, you have ABC products. Not, if you have 50 SKUs right now, at least five of that, the hero products, the biggest margin type of products, that's
Mm.
what you over order. And the rest, under order or do not order at all. It's like, now we don't have the chance to have a mistake of what product to PO. So if you are if the owner is the one handling finance and marketing, which is common, then think of it like, think of understanding which products are we going to double down on versus stopping or lowering, because it you need to order extra for the products that you have the biggest margin on, or the best seller product for you.
And in your professional opinion, like, is that like kind of a must do right now for brand owners? Like, stop worrying about the accessories, like, focus on your hero products, make sure those are in stock. Like, are we at that point now? Like,
This is the time. Yes, this is the time, because it's not gonna stop in 2 months. The price increase, or the domino effect that we have been discussing earlier, is gonna take 12 more months. So we are just in the first part of the impact. It's gonna get more and more. And so, you know, I know it's super frustrating for brands that would want to explore getting more types of SKUs or
Mhm.
launching more and more. Now the game is simplifying what you have in your catalog. So you have, if you know your products before, you have to get a better understanding of your products right now, because maybe your margin has changed, landed cost has changed. You said you got 60% freight higher from this last shipment. So your landed cost gonna change a lot. And is that product that is the hero before, is it still the hero now?
Mhm.
So you have to consider a lot of things like margin, seasonality, if it's the winter, or because I'm not four seasons, I have to sing winter.
Mhm.
Winter, spring, summer,
Mhm.
fall. So those were the things that you have to consider. And if you're planning on new product development right now about creating more SKU, you have to think more about it.
This just makes me want to have a little side tangent convo because what you're saying is so interesting and it's so business and operationally minded. That it's that synergy between logistics and cash flow and margin and marketing and just making sure it's one
Yes.
cohesive sort of
Yeah.
train moving in the right direction. In your experience having worked with so many e-commerce and D2C, but also I assume like larger retail brands, is is this something that separates, the brands that last versus the brands that don't? Is having a really good understanding of how all this works together?
Yes. And the owners that I've been working with that understands their margin for every SKU is the one that can decide faster what to double down on, what to kill, because you need to, if you need to PO today and you'll start to get an understanding and analysis of your products today, it's gonna get, you probably need more, 1 week more before you can PO. But if you
Mm.
already know which products are going to be in that PO, then you're now scheduled with your manufacturer right now. So speed still the name of the game, especially for DTC. If we have shortages in raw materials stock right now, then speed is more important. So the more understanding you have with your product, if I ask you what's your biggest margin, largest margin SKU right now, and also the biggest seller, what's that? What are those products? Because that's what we're going to reorder today.
So then for consumers, then if that ends up happening, there's going to be a lot less options potentially on the market, which means, maybe not as fun from a consumption perspective, but brands got to do what they got to do to survive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, specifically for bags, quality and design is very, 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 very important. So
Mm.
I think this is a marketing step. I don't know how to navigate this, but in my perspective, how much can you increase? Because there are consumers that are willing to pay double for the bag that they really, really, really want.
Yeah.
You don't use bag one time and put it away. So it's a long term use. So maybe bags can be more expensive than other apparels. Apparels like there's Shein, there's a lot of Temu, lower brand that can replace it. But for bags, I think it's a lot different. Maybe if you can share more about that, what do you observe?
Do you hear that in the distance? That is a lot of people in my community coming at us very angrily right now because they don't want higher prices. So it's
Mm.
but it's. I think that there's a little bit of room in the bag world because I think it depends on what kind of bags, right? For your JanSport, $50 backpack, like, or $30 to $50, like, that needs to be priced as a commodity basically because you're
Yeah.
just trying to get an entry level backpack. But there's always been a willingness in our community for people to pay what
Yeah.
they think is necessary to get their hands, because on a backpack, that's this high quality with a lifetime warranty made from the world's most premium materials, you know, there's a lot of money that goes into it. So people understand they're going to get great value out of it. there's sort of like an industry standard right now where these premium backpacks are, where it's probably in the $200 to $300 range. Anything below that, and it doesn't feel premium. Anything above that, and it's like, ooh, you're getting a little ambitious, So, but we might see these price points breached soon. We might see, these brands. If I just had to pay 60% more to get my Firo bags from Vietnam to California, and now I'm paying a tariff on top of that, and then this is just the way it goes, and this is why inflation gets worse. So we'll see how it works in the bag world. But I'm curious, like, was there any other recommendations that you had for
Yes.
brand
Uh,
owners in
an-
general?
Another negotiation tactics that I would ask you to start doing is the MOQ and payment terms. So first, the MOQ is very important right now, especially if you want to continue launching new designs. And
Just for anybody who's listening right now, MOQ, who might not know, MOQ is minimum order quantity,
yes,
and
that's
for a
right.
factory to be profitable on the order that you're putting in, there needs to be a minimum. Otherwise,
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense for them to even
yeah,
do it. In the bag world, we see it anywhere in China from like 3 to 500 in
yeah,
my experience,
yeah.
but it can go up. I was actually just talking to someone today who's producing in Vietnam, and ladder their MOQ is 1,000. So there's a large variation, but go on. What do you think that we should be doing in regards to our MOQs?
Yeah, so it is very important that you have a low MOQ for new products so that you can test it first before you order more.
Hmm.
And at the same time, the payment terms so that it can help with the cash flow. These two are commonly not being negotiated by DTC as well. So if they gave you 30/70 payment terms, that's the first steps. There could be net 30, net 60 at some point. And so if they are willing to discuss business with you, then you can share that information with them and and try to let them understand why it's important to have that payment terms in this scenario right now, and they are aware of the Middle East wars. Then maybe you can get it now. If you didn't get it last month, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, last year, try it again.
Sure.
Because yeah, some vendors, they wouldn't even try asking. Sorry, some brands, they wouldn't even try asking. But
Mhm.
those who tried one time, they didn't try anymore, and just they didn't allow me. But try again now, because they have lost a lot of clients already, and they're also trying to get more clients right now. That's why there are more trade shows that they're doing this year compared to years ago. So they're now going to US with trade shows. They're doing Canton Fair bigger. There are more global sourcing fair events right now, which we are going to see each other on. And yeah, there are more actions as well from the vendor side. So it's not just you, brand owners, that is having this problem. They are affected too. So talking with each other and negotiating and being in one room, I think, is very, very helpful at this point. If you can fly, I just had a client, an apparel client, that transitioned. One who transitioned, the transition from US to China, flew there last week, and my team is meeting them tomorrow. So
Mhm.
it's more of like that. Now they got 150 styles from the vendor that saved them maybe 6 months of NPD because they flew. And so, yeah, there are so many reasons, depending on how serious you are in this business. You can definitely, if you're not aware what you can do or what you can say, what you can negotiate, then there are so many free resources for that.
Yeah, I've taken it for granted how many like brand owners actually visit their factories, because I'm new to this, and I just always visit my factory because I have to, and I'm very close, But then the longer I've been in this game, the more I've realized that actually a lot of people don't visit their factories. Some people don't even have never visited their factories. Some brand owners, and that's crazy to me. And I've just heard so many stories about that, A, going wrong, but B, when you develop that personal relationship and you're actually visiting and physically engaging and interacting with your factory, it just good things can happen, from a negotiation perspective, from a business perspective, from a relationship perspective. So I can definitely testify to that as well.
At least for Asian vendors, it's really important. The face to face, it's really, really important for them. The most the hardest negotiation I have, I won it in person. And so that's something that um, brand owners should consider, because it's gonna be harder and harder as we deal with this Middle East war.
Any other points that you want to give to any e-commerce or brand owners, or is that like the most important ones you think?
Yes, yes, and soft strategy is being stop panicking. Maybe
Hmm.
that one is gonna be a lot. You're gonna have more ideas and solutions if you don't panic. I've seen a lot of panicking brands last year because of the tariff, and they spent so much more because of that panic. And I've seen that brands at this point right now is a lot more smarter, and I'm very happy to see that less panic, more solutions for these challenges. And I think we've been over the pandemic, the hardest one for me. I was in DTC already when that happened. And so four major disruptions since I started working with DTC brands, and we're all getting through all of each of them. So
What are the four? I know three. What are the four? Run us
first
through them.
one is the 2018 tariff. It's
Uh-huh.
huge because it's the first Section 301 in the US. Second is pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And then third is the tariff again last
Ah,
year.
okay.
Major. We lost almost all our clients. Like I think we just retained five last year because they
Mm-hmm.
panicked. They dropped us off, and we said, "No, you cannot just drop us right now. The more you
Hmm.
need us right now." And
Yeah.
they took us back when they realized they need us in sourcing. And so it's like, do not panic. We are extra cost for them, but it's an ROI when we found solutions for supply chain problems.
Hmm.
That one is the third, and this is the fourth. So major disruptions
Which one? Go on.
in my experience with KFC. I worked with KFC, and I handled oil in KFC. So one of the
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
that's the biggest, the most expensive category is oil, aside from chicken, but
Hmm.
oil, I handle that. So it's a very different game way back 2009 when I was handling oil, and there was also price increase. We ordered 6 months worth of oil because we have money and we
Hmm.
have the reserve. We have the money, and we have the space to stock 6 months of oil. So, and also our vendors in Malaysia can also have reserve for us. So it's a very different scenario. If you have money, if my client has money, then it's easier for supply chain. But in DTC, we're all lean. We're trying to save as much. Lowering COGS is the name of the game, and it's not possible to just over order everything. So yeah.
I think the takeaway being consumers show a little bit of patience. Things are going to get a little bit tight, and your favorite bag brands and travel gear brands, they're all going to have to tighten the belt and, become a little bit more lean than they already are. For the brand owners out there, especially the bag brand owners that, listen to this podcast, I think taking Lada's advice, going leaner, focusing on your hero products, and trying to negotiate where you can. I think that within crisis, opportunities present themselves, right? A factory might be less likely to negotiate when things are high and good because they don't need your business because they'll just fill in the slot with someone else. But when times are tight, you'll see that people are more willing to go to the negotiation table. And I think, that's just some really solid advice that I'm going to be taking. And also as we work together, I'm really excited to see how that goes. But Lada, let's say that somebody wants to go even more than that and they're curious about possibly working with MSC. Where can they reach out to you or learn more about Move Supply Chain?
Yeah. So first, I will definitely recommend that you follow my YouTube channel for these advices, because again, if you don't know the next steps, then it's gonna be hard. So it's Move Supply Chain Lara in YouTube, and then if you wanted to like have a discovery call with us, it's movesupplychain.com, and there's a Calendly link there, and you can book a call.
I can speak firsthand as to how great your guys' services are. I'm super stoked about moving forward together too, and just like but it's like you said, and it's what I'm starting to realize as I'm going further down this e-commerce journey. It's there's a lot of great products out there, and there's a lot of great designers out there, and in the bag world too, we see it. We see these great bags, but it doesn't mean they understand the business side of this, and that seems to be what sort of makes or breaks, you know, a small brand that's struggling versus a brand that understands their margins, has a good handle on their supply chains, and really understands like this part of the business. And that's what sort of inspired me to reach out to you guys, and that's why I'm so excited to move forward with you guys. So Lada, I really appreciate your time. I'll be seeing you in Vietnam next
Yes.
week. Any last notes or parting words?
Yes, I think I've said it earlier. Do not panic. Read more information. Like we can do this. We've been through wars, and do not hesitate to reach out and ask for help, especially to your vendors.
Love that. Lada, thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to buying you a banh mi to make up for my mistake earlier. And anybody who's listening to this, if you have any comments or questions, be sure to let us know in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.
All right.